Hey there, it's Jason with the Marketing Podcast Network. Real quick, I want to make sure you know that the world's leading B2B Marketing Expo is returning to the Los Angeles Convention Center on March 21st and 22nd. It's high time we got back together to learn, see the latest technologies and solutions, and network, right? Join thousands of marketing professionals just like you to learn from over 250 industry expert speakers, educational masterclasses, and over 300 exhibitors. And this year, your ticket also gets you into the Sales Innovation Expo and the Marketing and Advertising Expo. So it's like 3 conferences in one. It's March 21st and 22nd at the Los Angeles Convention Center. Go to b2bmarketingexpo.us to register. That's b2bmarketingexpo.us. The Marketing Podcast Network is a proud partner of the B2B Marketing Expo for 2023. We'll see you in LA.
As a business-to-business marketer, your needs are unique. B2B buying cycles are long and your customers face incredibly complex decisions. Isn't it time you had a marketing platform built specifically for you? LinkedIn ads empower marketers with solutions for you and your customers. LinkedIn ads allow you to build the right relationships, drive results, and reach your customers in a respectful manner. On LinkedIn, you'll have access to and build relationships with decision makers. Of the 875 million users on the network, 180 million are senior level executives, 10 million are C-level executives. You'll also be able to drive results with targeting and measurement tools built specifically for B2B. And they work. Audiences exposed to brand messages on LinkedIn are 6 times more likely to convert. LinkedIn ads is also ranked number 1 for security, community, and ad experience as part of Business Insider's Digital Trust Study. Make B2B marketing everything it can be and get a $100 credit on your next campaign. Go to linkedin.com/MPN to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/MPN. Terms and conditions apply. I'm Nick Westergaard, and this is On Brand, helping you tell your story. My guest this week is Ellen Marie Bennet.
Genuinely, there is not one single way to build a brand, and a lot of the ways that we see it in modern day is, with a lot of funding, and people go out and they buy a bunch of ads on Instagram and a sexy agency that makes it all, builds the machine for them, if you will. And in our case, it was quite the opposite. I started with $300 out of my house, and I was our entire infrastructure.
As a 24-year-old line cook, Ellen Marie Bennet couldn't stand the kitchen staff's poorly designed, cheaply made aprons. So when her head chef announced he was ordering a new batch, she blurted out, "Chef, I have an apron company," even though she had no company, no business plan, just a glimmer of a design idea and a business license. Through hustle and a willingness to leap into the unknown, time and time again, she built that first order into a multi-million-dollar company called Hedley Bennet, making aprons and kitchen gear worn by many of the world's best chefs and home cooks everywhere. Ellen Marie Bennet, welcome to On Brand.
Thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
The bio is such an interesting touch point because usually I find something in reading them that I want to talk about right away. And yours is the simple fact that so few people send a story as a bio. It's usually kind of a rundown of this person did this, then they did that, then they did that. Now you're talking to them today because they do X, Y, and Z. And I love that you baked your founder's story into even a simple bio.
Yeah, well, it's an unusual beginning, so I like to share that journey because it's a different one, and I think different makes people think differently. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And I have to, the other thing I have to get out of the way is because it closed with "and home cooks everywhere." And that's where I would raise my hand and say, I am one of those home cooks everywhere. And mostly, I got to tell you, and I'm gonna out myself for, everybody wants the cool, the in kitchen gear. And everywhere you look, if you have an eye and you see someone that you respect in the kitchen wearing an apron, you see that little ampersand of the Hedley and Bennett, and you're like, yes, that is the sign that I can send to others that will say that I know what I'm doing in the kitchen, even if I don't always.
When I first started Hedley Bennet, I would say I want to become the Nike of the culinary world. And in our own way, I feel like we've been able to give people that feeling and that confidence, the way that, Serena Williams makes people feel like a rock star when they're wearing Nike on the tennis court. It's that same vibe. It's like you're not actually doing anything to the person, but you actually are, because you're giving them this personal, hell yes, I can confidence internally.
That's a great parallel with the Nike thing too. I love when we can do that with brand building, because a lot of times people struggle to give words to what it is that they're trying to do, and that simple exercise of I want to be the this, take some other brand, some other personality, some other industry of this, my industry, and that Nike example is a great one. And for me, it wouldn't be. It's not Serena Williams. It was. I think the straw that broke the camel's back was a Stanley Tucci cookbook, and I'm like, God, I gotta get me one of those, because then I will, at least in my head, I will have that level of mastery.
Oh, I love that. Yes, that was a big deal. I was like, oh my God, it's Stanley Tucci, and oh my God, that's our apron on the cover.
Oh, well, and so talk a bit about, some of, I mean, there's your story that we told, but talk also about it. It is, the Nike thing is a great, like, kind of almost a targeting tool. But in terms of how you got there, there's lots of different brand touch points. There's the ampersand, which I think absolutely, when you said that earlier, I'm like, yeah, that's the swoosh. And talk a bit about the name too.
Yeah. So the inspiration for the actual ampersand patch, like if you're watching Top Chef or Food Network or, Gordon Ramsay's Next Level Chef, we outfit all of those shows, and you'll see that little patch on the chest. And for me, I've always loved branding to be understated and present, but a little bit more like, if not beat you over the head. I sometimes think about Abercrombie and Fitch in the 90s, and how it was like the giant bag with the hot guy, and it said Abercrombie and Fitch across the front of it. It was like really in your face, right? You couldn't miss it. And I find that when things are like that, it's a little more trend oriented versus timeless. And I am and have always wanted to build a brand that you could recognize, but you can't put your finger on when it started, and therefore when it ends is never, because it's just going to carry on throughout the ages. And so that was how the ampersand became so subtle. The inspo for the actual shape and how it looked was the Lacoste alligator, because I loved that it was, you could touch it and it came off of the clothing like a patch, but it was really subtle, but it meant something. It meant in its own way, you commanded excellent skill of tennis. You were cool, but you were a little preppy. Like it had so many descriptors attached to you by wearing Lacoste. And I loved that. And so Hedley and Bennett got that patch because of it. And then Hedley and Bennett's name, my grandfather was the full inspiration for that. So I grew up half Mexican, half English. And my English grandfather's name was Hedley Bennet. And Bennett was also my nickname at the restaurant where I used to work. And so I was like, how can I make people understand that this brand is kind of like old school, timeless, dignified, proper, beautiful, well-made. And then at the same time that I have this whole other side of me that's like spunky and colorful and just like leap out the window and figure it out on your way down. And so it just became a nod to my two cultures smashed together with an and, which also just represents all the things you can be. You don't have to be one thing or another. You actually can be many things. And.
That's amazing. And again, I think also it does have this kind of this just kind of vibe to it. It feels like it's been there forever. And it's kind of it's somehow more than the sum of its parts even. So that's really cool. And I love the note about the Lacoste. And as you talk about patches and things, I am also reminded of another, just a simple touch point of being able to sign my apron. And I don't know why that's a special thing. But it is that I can put my name on the patch on the inside, and it's a simple thing, like you did with your t-shirts before summer camp, but it makes it kind of uniquely yours, I would say as well.
Totally. Yes, it gives you our aprons. For anyone that's listening, if you're ever like, I want to just, show my own vibe, this is what we do. It's like we give people the ability to chameleon into whatever they are feeling that day. And so we actually very much have apron heads where there's people that own 20, 30 of our different designs because of all the different collaborations we've done throughout the years, be it with Grateful Dead or Love Shack Fancy, which is like a very Hampton style brand that has nothing to do with Grateful Dead. And then, we make a sharp left and go over to our Sesame Street collab and you're like, whoa. And then we're like, oh, by the way, we're going to do, Madewell. And we just have always done things that are unusual and unexpected and unique. And people love it and want to come back for more because they get to then kind of be in the kitchen being a badass, but then also rocking their, Sesame Street Cookie Monster apron. And you're just like, hell yes, you can. You can be cool and you can be funny and you can be cute and you can be that. And so it's been really, I guess you asked me earlier, like, how have we built this brand? I would say this in genuinely, there is not one single way to build a brand. And a lot of the ways that we see it in modern day is, with a lot of funding, and people go out and they buy a bunch of ads on Instagram and a sexy agency that like makes it all, builds the machine for them, if you will. And in our case, it was quite the opposite. Like, I started with $300 out of my house and I was our entire infrastructure. I was the machine. And so for us, building the brand required old-fashioned work and showing up relentlessly. And I would go to food festivals with my chef and work with him for free so that I could come and meet all the chefs there. And I would go stand by stand and introduce myself to people, be out of my comfort zone, be told no, be told I didn't want to be, like you name it. The rejection and failure was higher. It was a higher rate than success. But I knew that if I didn't do that, nobody would find out about me. And I have this like really brilliant, amazing mentor of mine who's, passed this year. And I always called him Uncle Ted. He was my uncle, but through my aunt, who was actually my like real aunt. And he would always say to me, like, you got to have a lot of fishing lines out there. And while one isn't biting, another one will. And so I've always carried that in my perspective for building a brand. You got to go out there and do a ton of outreach. And when you have no customers, do more outreach. And automatically, by the sheer nature of the way things work, inbound will come because of the outreach that you put out. And that is kind of one of the many ways that I did this, like an old school lady.
Well, and I also would imagine that answer that you just gave could also serve as an answer to what was going to be my next question, which is you talk about being the Nike of something and there's the aesthetic of that, but it's also, like you mentioned earlier, the Serena Williams, Stanley Tucci top chef of it all. And I was going to ask, how do you go from chef, I have an apron company with no apron company, and then you get to the top chef point, But how are you building that? Is it that outreach? How do you get to that level?
I think it's having the courage to go and talk to people that are probably going to say no and doing it anyway. And because of my kind of relentlessness to make really important figureheads in our industry know that we existed and then actually solve a problem for them. It wasn't just like, oh, great, this is like a cute apron company, right? I was actually making product that was significantly improved from anything that existed. So I think that's an important note here. You build a brand around product that actually works. It's harder to build a everlasting brand if your stuff sucks. And so I was bringing, well designed, well fitted, beautiful fabric, adjustable straps, like the complete antidote to what we were typically wearing, which was like a scrap of fabric with a strap on top and no adjustability, and you could see through the fabric and it was just garbage. And so here I was like, hey, I can put your branding on the apron. I can make it fit well. Tell me what pockets you like. Tell me what you hate about your current product and I'll make it better. And so when you're doing that with Martha Stewart and David Chang and, people that other people know, you're kind of being able to create a community with these really epic people and then simultaneously get their knowledge and have them help you build a great product. So our product wasn't built by like focus groups. Our product was built by individuals working in the kitchen that actually needed the solution.
On Brand will be right back after this.
Hey there, it's Jason Falls. If your company or maybe one of your clients sells to marketers, you look for advertising channels that guarantee business marketers are paying attention, right? Let me introduce you to the Marketing Podcast Network. You're listening to it right now. It's a network of podcasts all about marketing. So 100% of MPN's audience are marketers. Reach them by advertising on the Marketing Podcast Network. Learn more and find our media kit at marketingpodcasts.net.
As a business-to-business marketer, your needs are unique. B2B buying cycles are long and your customers face incredibly complex decisions. Isn't it time you had a marketing platform built specifically for you? LinkedIn ads empower marketers with solutions for you and your customers. LinkedIn ads allow you to build the right relationships, drive results, and reach your customers in a respectful manner. On LinkedIn, you'll have access to and build relationships with decision makers. Of the 875 million users on the network, 180 million are senior level executives, 10 million are C-level executives. You'll also be able to drive results with targeting and measurement tools built specifically for B2B. And they work. Audiences exposed to brand messages on LinkedIn are 6 times more likely to convert. LinkedIn Ads is also ranked number 1 for security, community, and ad experience as part of Business Insider's Digital Trust Study. Make B2B marketing everything it can be and get a $100 credit on your next campaign. Go to linkedin.com/MPN to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/MPN. Terms and conditions apply. Now, back to the show.
So, in talking about developing what is, it just is an amazing apron. It's sitting here nodding along with, the scrap of fabric. It's like you look at other things called aprons, and the bar is very low. But you talk about not focus grouping this, and ending up with an apron that's the opposite of that, with the adjustable straps, with the pocket, with the little, I'm sure there's a name for it, the little strappy thing that the tongs can go through.
The towel loop. Yeah.
Towel loop. Okay, there we go. Now, see, I can talk the talk, and I'll sound even smarter. The overall pocket, that's what I call it. I'm not sure what it is. I'm in Iowa, so we have a lot of overalls here.
Chest pocket, yeah, that you can put like tweezers and Sharpies and your cell phone in.
My phone, yes, to check all of the things. So, in place of focus group, how did you arrive at what's ultimately a pretty it's an incredible product with all of these carefully thought out things.
Yeah, it was honestly years. It took years. Like, this is not, I've had the company, for anyone wondering, for 10 years now. So it's been a
Wow.
decade. And through those 10 years, there were many times where I delivered products and people were like, this is not going to work. My first order, I wrote a book called Dream First, Details Later. And the very opening chapter is me essentially being told by my first customer, who also, by the way, was my chef at the time, it was like, Bennett, these aprons suck. Like, the day after I turned them into him, and thought I was hot shit because I had delivered the order on time. And that was a miracle in its own right, because when he gave me the order, I never even had an apron company before that. And I had to kind of, like, with a mental gun to my head, had to run around and come up with the better strap system than my original ones. And so I say this because I've gotten to a great apron by a lot of failure and a lot of willingness to listen to our customers when we do it wrong and make it better. And I think that sometimes people think everything has to be perfect before you can go and do something. But that's actually not true. In our case, it was a little bit the opposite. And has the road been windy? Yes. Could I have done it more in a more direct fashion? Absolutely. Does our company do it a little bit differently now? Yes, but still with the backbone of individual opinion and concepts and feedback are so much more valuable than just a automated email that you're shipping off to people. You don't get the context or the intonation of their voice, or where they hem and haw at something while they're talking about it. And that's what I got with every single order over the last, with the first 5 years. Every order I learned something. And those towel loops, that came from a chef. The length of the straps, that came from a chef. And for anyone listening who's like, what the hell? This is a whole episode about aprons. This is crazy. It's like, no, this has nothing to do with aprons. This has to do with the concept of being willing to make something out of nothing, whether it is an apron, whether it is a protein powder, whatever the hell you are doing. You just have to know why you're doing it, have a purpose for it, and make a product that, like, actually works. And when you have that foundationally, you can then build a brand. Don't build a brand with a shitty product. You've got things out of order in that way.
Yeah, yeah. And you talk about this work, and it is that. It is hard work. And you've arrived at what's ultimately a great damn apron. But in looking at that, how did you know that it was time to expand? Because as we started connecting into the knife space, the thermometer space, towel space, all the gear, how did you know as you looked at, because over the past 10 years, Hedley and Bennett has come to be, that Nike of the apron world. As you look at other things to put your swoosh, your Lacoste alligator, your ampersand on, how do you know when something can be a Hedley Bennett product or should be?
Well, one of the brand pillars for our product development team is it always has to be pro grade. So whatever we make needs to be able to hold up in a professional kitchen. That's just like, if it can't hold up in a pro kitchen, it's a non-starter. It also needs to be very appealing. It needs to look good so that people can feel good in it. And not from a place of vanity, but simply because if you bring function and good looks together, you just kind of have like a secret weapon. It works together so effectively. And that is kind of how we started thinking about what other products could we bring to the Hedley Bennett ecosystem. So, we also listened to our customers. For a long time, people were like, we freaking love you, but how many more aprons can we have? We need to have other things. We want to have this. We want to have that. So we listened and listened and listened and did a lot of work around what the next frontier was going to look like. And we're like, you know what? We're actually a culinary brand. We're not just an apron company. And that means we have the opportunity to take what we've built and expand it into areas that people also have crappy product in. And we chose knives as the first kind of leap into the unknown, because if you think about the apron, you're wearing it. And what's the first thing that you need after you're putting an apron on your body? You need a knife. It's an extension of your hand. It is literally the next product on your body that needs to exist. And it's so crucial and essential. And you could be dropped off on an island. And if you have a knife, like, you can pretty much make it, because you can cut fish and you can grill things and you can spark fire. And it's just an element of basicness that is part of the kitchen. And that's how we did it. We were like, knives. And we launched them a month ago in 3 colors: the bread knife, the utility knife, and the chef's knife. And it's honestly been so incredible watching it take off, because people are loving it. And 60% of our first purchasers were already customers of ours. So people were just over the moon to be able to get another thing in their kitchen that they know has the quality of a Hedley and Bennett product.
And so there's knives. What else are? Did I get everything? Is it knives, towels, thermometer?
We have kitchen towels and, like oven mitts, pot holders, which, on one side you say, well, that's not as essential. But what we did was make it so that, professional grillers and bakers at home can also use these products. And then our kitchen towels are amazing. And we also have shoes with Vans. So they're like slip resistant, water resistant, really beautiful. They're permanently sold out all the time. We have like 3 batches every year that we receive. And I'm telling you, they like sell out within a couple of weeks, which is crazy. So that's an ongoing product that we have. And we're working on a bunch of other products coming out next year that are hard goods that I can't say out loud just yet, but just think of everything you need in the kitchen and nothing you don't. We're going for the essentials. And that is what you get in the Hedley Bennett land.
I love the Hedley and Bennett land. And when you said that about dish towels too, I feel like that shares a similar kind of story in the kitchen ecosystem. These things we call towels are, especially kitchen towels, it's like, what's the lowest common denominator for a piece of fabric that could maybe sort of pick up a mess, maybe. And by the way, it looks horrible instantly. So it's tricky.
Yeah, totally. No, it's I love that this was the first thing I got to do. I'm 35 now, and I started it when I was 24. And oh my God, the adventures and challenges and face smashes that I've experienced, as I vividly describe in my book, Dream First, Details Later, is such a fucking adventure. I don't even know if I'm allowed to say that word on here, but I can't describe it any other way than I'm just, happy to be here, still standing to tell the story. And, I have no desire to do anything but this right now, but I'm proud of the knowledge that we've learned. And that is why it's exciting for me to share our journey, because other people should know that you can do this in a different way. You can build a brand. You can do it with $300 out of your house. You can do it as a Mexican woman raised by a single Mexican mom with nothing handed to me on my plate. And yet here I am sharing this with you. So whoever's listening, I hope I reach out and tap you on the shoulder and say, hey, I'm talking to you. Do it. Do the thing. Stop thinking about it and just take the leap. Make it happen.
I love it. That's a great, and you've mentioned your book a couple of times too, and I want to make sure, and we'll link up to that in our show notes as well. Before we get there, though, I get to ask you, I've smiled so many times throughout your various stories and thinking of fun in the kitchen. But now I get to ask you, Ellen, for a brand that has made you smile recently.
It's made me smile recently. So it's a different, I guess I would call it a brand, but it's really a foundation, and it definitely has made me smile recently. It's called This Is About Humanity, and it is an incredible organization that is in so many ways has a similar beginning to Hedley Bennet. It's very scrappy. Every penny goes to where it needs to go. They're not taking any resources to, keep the foundation afloat. And we just got back from Mexico yesterday. We went to bring gifts and smiles and hugs to shelters at the border. And it meant a lot to me, and it was very bittersweet, and I cried a lot, but I also walked away with like such gratitude and joy when I saw my little son back at home. And I thought, man, like there are so many good people out in the world doing really good things from a very earnest place. And while the media makes it look like the whole world has gone insane, there's actually more good people in the world than bad people, and we need to highlight those people. And This Is About Humanity is one of those foundations that I think about them and I just smile every time.
I love that. That's great. And it made me smile thinking about it. And I love that story. So we'll link up to them as well. Ellen, where can folks go to learn about all things Hedley and Bennett Land?
Well, you guys should definitely follow us on Instagram and TikTok. We are a good time. Our TikTok has almost 1 million followers, and it's just a bunch of very awesome videos on how to cook. And my personal Instagram is Ellen Marie Bennet. Hedley and Bennett is obviously our companies, but on Ellen Marie Bennet, you can follow me and my pet pig Oliver and my son and all of our adventures here in LA. And and then obviously go to our website, hedleyandbennett.com. Sign up for our newsletter. They're beautiful and they're not spammy. And be a part of our ecosystem. Join the apron squad, as we like to call it. Rock our aprons, get knives, because I know you have a dull knife at home. So let's step up your game and fix that once and for all. Our set is like a screaming deal. I'm actually always telling our team, I'm like, guys, the set is too inexpensive. This is crazy. So go take advantage of our team right now and buy the set of knives before I make them raise the price, because it's crazy. These knives are Japanese steel. They're stunning. We just launched them and we're almost sold out. So I hope you guys get those too.
Awesome. Well, that is not only a website to go to and things to follow, but a call to action. I love it. So hopefully we've got some new members of the Apron Squad out there as a result of this. Ellen, thanks for being on brand with us.
Thank you for having me.
On Brand is part of the Marketing Podcast Network. If you like what you're hearing, if we've made you smile, you can always listen free on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or whatever your favorite platform may be. And please take a moment and rate and review the podcast to help others find the show. Until next week, I'm Nick Westergaard, and I'll see you on the internet.
This podcast is heard along the Marketing Podcast Network. For more great marketing podcasts, visit marketingpodcasts.net.